Yes,
Yeah,
I know.
just give it back to you.
Boom, boom. Call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Saper,
Here.
Councilmember McGrone is absent. Councilmember Smith,
Here.
Councilmember Fitzgerald,
Here.
Councilmember Alvarez,
Here.
Councilmember Clark,
Here.
Councilmember Todd.
Here.
All right, next item is the Pledge of Allegiance, which tonight will be led by Councilmember Saper. Oh, wow. All right, next item is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve.
Second. All in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next item, comments from the public. Anyone from the public wishing to speak, please step up to the microphone now. Seeing no one, that'll take us to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposed, say no. Motion carries. Item number 8, resolution approving agreement with Rebuilding Together Kansas City, resolution number 24064. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I didn't know if you wanted to talk about these two next items together. I do have a representative from NNI. Scott Hickox with Rebuilding Together Kansas City has sent me some information. For personal reasons, he had a conflict for this evening. So I did place at your desks the data, the requested data that was, the council kind of directed us to bring forward to you to this particular meeting. So you have two separate pieces of paper in front of you. One of them is a stapled 8.5 by 11. That is the Rebuilding Together Kansas City. The first sheet are the projects that Rebuilding Together Kansas City has completed. They have an application in process. That is that second sheet. They are still waiting on some information from the applicant before they can either approve or deny that particular project. So, and then the bigger 11 by 17 piece of paper is the NNI information. And again, since both of these contracts are similar yet different, but I do believe that the council's questions were kind of program utilization, if there's any barriers to program access, kind of more program design questions. Scott from Rebuilding Together Kansas City has, I'll just read what he wrote me. Kim, we have completed 2 projects in the past 12 months. We have 1 application waiting on additional information. We have not turned away any clients in the past 24 months. One of the things that I did want to kind of say is when we market both of these programs, we do state that it is owner-occupied only. That was one of the things that Scott had said, that he had actually not received any renter requests. And I think it's because any messaging that the city does and what they do on their own specifies owner occupancy. I do have, would you like the NNI person to kind of come up and chat about her data?
You got some more information since last meeting, then yeah, go ahead, please. Oh, yep, that's me. Hold on, sorry. There we go.
Okay, we have 9 home repair programs. Of the 9, only 4 are available for North Kansas City residents, just because of, requirements that are written by the funder. Currently, of those 4 that are available for North Kansas City residents, 2 of those have been exhausted for 2024. So we're down to 2 funds, and one of those is the North Kansas City home repair that we're talking about currently. Once that other fund is exhausted, we won't have any funds available for North Kansas City residents until probably early spring next year. So if somebody does apply, we will have to turn them away if we don't get this additional funding at this time.
Councilmember Smith.
So I'm looking at the 2024 report. It looks like we spent of $20,000, $339. And What is NTP on here?
The notice to proceed.
Notice
So
to
that's when the
proceed.
project started.
And it was finished, so it was noticed on 11/1/23 and finished on 11/2/24?
Right, that was just a thermostat replacement from, it was a quick, easy repair.
But it was a year, or is that a typo?
Oh, it must be a typo. On mine, it says 23, so I apologize. The
Okay.
automatic date must have popped in.
Thank you for
Yeah.
clarifying. Okay, so I guess I go back to, it looks like there was some decent utilization in the first year, but help me understand why we've only been able to send 339 out the door. Is it people, you said they weren't qualifying, I think, it was the
Correct.
income was
Yeah.
too, and you're using federal guidelines for that?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
We just don't have the applicants coming in. We do advertise on our, social media, in our meetings, monthly, weekly meetings.
It
that
goes
these
out in our
programs-
newsletter that circulates to the entirety of the city.
Correct.
And how many, do you have the number on how many you turned away based on income?
I think it was 2 that didn't qualify because they exceeded the income limits.
Okay, did you have any tenants apply that didn't qualify based on that?
We have inquiries come in over the phone that maybe didn't apply but inquired. And we
Okay.
just had to turn them, tell them we just don't apply, we can't help rental.
We don't have numbers on that, how many might have called in?
No,
Okay.
we do not track that.
Okay. Other than, I'm not really comfortable changing the federal guideline piece, like the income
Mm-hmm.
limit. Is there something you'd recommend that would make this a more accessible program?
We
for our
could, and
residents?
I did talk to our CEO right before this meeting, and she is open to helping and assisting rental households as long as the component of a disabled individual or a senior citizen, as far as accessibility or modifications would, those types of repairs. She was up for that, but we can't just open it up to all rental properties. We just don't have the capacity or the resources for that. But definitely for the senior citizen and disabled household, we could accommodate small modifications.
So I'll jump in here. That's something that Rebuilding Together Kansas City had mentioned is pretty much if we were to consider opening up the program, it would only be to modifications, meaning that somebody has had a life event, their mobility has changed, they perhaps need a ramp for several months, they need to have a taller toilet and some grab bars, but they would not recommend opening it up for home repair for income properties.
I know the stated concern was that if we open it up to rentals, then the landlords would end up benefiting for free repairs. That makes sense. And in a modification situation, speaking as a landlord, there's really not value add for adding a higher toilet or grab bars or putting a ramp. That's something that would eventually be removed when the tenant moves out. So I could certainly get comfortable with that without feeling like we're overreaching.
And then I'm just going to add real quick that the ramp that we're building, you probably have seen them. There are several around North Kansas City. It's those metal ones that just kind of snap onto the door. They're easily removed when that particular individual either moves from that property or their mobility has changed enough that that's no longer needed.
I guess as we touch on ramps on the front, doesn't the firefighters community organization also do that sort of work? Sorry, I probably I
Did
feel
you
like
want
the name's
to?
much
I
longer
think
than that, but
those are more permanent structures.
You're discussing like.
temporary ramps like on the front of a house.
Yeah, typically the ones that we have built in the past have been permanent structures. Like
Okay.
they're not necessarily temporary. And I am not a part of that organization, so
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't really even know how much
the nature.
they've actually done. So
Okay, just as we were kind of talking all options there, figured I'd throw that out as well. Okay. Further, what else we got? Quiet group.
Yeah, like I just want these funds to be used.
Yeah.
I know there are people, I've been through probably 50 to 60 houses in North Kansas City through my work and being a realtor as well. And the amount of just disrepair you find around this city is wild. Like I've been in homes that people are living in where like one sink in the entire house sort of works. And they don't know how to fix it. They don't have the money to call somebody, but they're a tenant and I don't understand the dynamic with their landlord, but that's the kind of thing I would like to see fixed for the people living here. But I don't know how to do that without benefiting deadbeat landlords. So I'm kind of stuck on that one.
The problem with the federal limit that we talked about last time was that you're sometimes using matching funds
Correct.
as part of a program. Okay. Because we still have a lot of money left on the table.
Would there be projects that are under, like, that wouldn't need matching funds that would then qualify if we raise the income limit?
Of course, yes. We could do a standalone without leveraging.
That would make sense.
Can we do it like a two-tier, where if it's a standalone project, income is a little higher, but if you need the match funds and you want to roll it together?
Yeah, you could make it whatever you would want it to be.
I like that.
What is our current limit?
The 80% area median income, and there's no limit on funding, but
Right.
as far as per household,
Yeah, what is the AMI?
80% AMI.
Well, do you know what the
what is
dollar figure?
Dollar figure, no, I don't have that on. I did not bring those numbers with me.
And when they're pulling area, what is the geographic area? Is it North Kansas City proper? Is
Yes.
it 64116?
It's city limits.
City limits. I should know that number. I feel like it's not very, it's like a 45,
there's-
maybe 50.
HUD number here, let's see. Kansas City, yeah, I might be off. I'm looking at 2023 adjusted home income limits. Well, then it depends on how many people. Is that, you kind of go through the same chart, how many people are in the house too?
Yes, it
and all
does go
that?
by
Yeah, so
household
it's not
size.
just like I got a whole chart of
Yeah,
numbers here. Yeah, but they kind of have limits at the 30% limit, then they have a very low
I know
income
for
limit.
the
60%
Kansas City
limit.
Metro, because that's one that we use as a KC Metro. I believe it's around for a one-person household. I think it's 50,000 or 51,000. 80% area median.
Do you have a recommended number, a percentage of AMI that would cast a wider net?
We could go up to 100%. We have a TIF program in the city of Kansas City, Missouri, that we do 100% area median income. It is targeted, just because it's a lower income area. But we could definitely accommodate
Yeah.
the 100% AMI.
Yeah, I'd be comfortable with that.
That must be the low income number. Then 50 would be 80% of that.
So something like up to 100% of AMI for standalone projects, and then 80% for the ones that need match funding.
Like I said, that would work.
Cast
You
a
could-
very slightly wider net.
You could definitely, it's your program.
Sure.
But we would definitely be able to accommodate that.
Any legal issues with going outside of the federal income guidelines that you can think of off the cuff?
I think that we would probably rely on NNI to send us some contract verbiage.
We can
I'm-
do that.
I'm just wondering if there's anything, like, the guidelines are the guidelines for a reason. They've been set up in the federals, but can we go above that without any sort of issue?
I'm unsure, I could look into it. We do not receive what's called CDBG funding, which is, that is a program with HUD strings on them. Since this is a self-funded program, I do not believe, now if the city, one of the things that I would love to actually do eventually is to pursue CDBG funding for these style of programs. You have to get a bit of a flywheel effect to be able to do that first. But we would be entitled to apply to the state of Missouri for our portion of CDBG funding. They need to see programs that are several years in the works and that are successfully doing the HUD mission, which is why we've been self-funding this style of program for the last couple of years. But kind of my end goal really was to be able to successfully apply for CDBG funding on an annual basis, not only for this project, but for other opportunities for North Kansas City residents. Again, we fit a lot of the parameters, but because of our population side, we're not what's considered a direct, we don't receive money directly. You have to be population 50,000 in the state of Missouri. Otherwise, what you have to do is you have to apply and then apply multiple times. But from my experience, you're not successful unless you have a good, solid program with great partners to show that you can do the work.
And expending roughly 2% of the funds isn't going to move the needle for the application, I imagine.
So we're going to, the idea is to set the upper limit at the 100% AMI, yeah, add AMI.
Yeah.
Yep, there we go.
Do we need
Other
a,
comments on that? Okay.
Well,
Councilmember Clark.
so the upper limit on the 100% AMI, but then are we also opening to those small items for rental that only fits those that have like a change of life or whatever incident? I don't.
So my thought would be, we would adjust the AMI for the NNI contract. For the Rebuilding Together Kansas City, because it's a different pot of money and a different vendor, we could, if the council wanted to discuss renters with mobility issues, amend their contract. This way, we are kind of doing two test pilot programs side by side to see what's moving the needle.
remind me which one is supposed to be minor home repair and which one is supposed to be home modification?
So they both are able to do that particular those particular programs. However, NNI is much better from our experience on the home repair. Rebuilding Together Kansas City has a lot more temporary home modification in there. They have a warehouse where they have a lot of these products that they just pull off the shelf, go install, and then when that person's mobility changes, they can go in and I hate to say, put it back into the warehouse for somebody else to benefit from. So we typically kind of have people go home modification with Rebuilding Together Kansas City. Now, when they do the home tour, they may see some repairs that they will do while they were in there. Same thing with NNI. NNI is very good at, you may call them because your heater is out, it's the middle of winter. When their crews go in there and they see that there's a giant hole in the floor or that some of the windows are broken out, but that particular person may not feel like they can talk about that, they do take it upon themselves to be able to put in those work orders on behalf of that homeowner. These are things that, as staff works with both of these particular nonprofit agencies, we have had the initial call and then kind of an audit, and that's where you see a lot more repairs coming in. And again, they're looking at it from a life safety perspective. They're going into these particular properties and going, wow, you called me about your thermostat, but what you really need is a new roof.
So that seems like it'd be more of a conversation we'd have to have with them a little bit farther too. So it'd probably be good to have them here in person, I would say, before we just start.
I could ask him to
Sitting
come
on the mission.
on
Yeah.
the 15th, but
If that's good, council, yeah, sorry,
Right,
we're going
right.
out of work because number 8's actually the Rebuilding Together. So if we're good with having that conversation of Rebuilding Together at a future meeting, then we will move on to item number 9, unless there's any opposition. Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 9, which is resolution approving agreement with Northland Neighborhoods, Inc., resolution number 24063. And so then our direction there, I guess, would be directing staff to continue to work with you to draft further language on a 2-tier, as we're calling it now, but you guys find a better way to put it, a 2-tier program that allows up to 100% AMI on certain, or I guess on all repairs. Is there a motion for that? There we go.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries.
Hang on.
Thank you, and we'll see you again.
What do you need?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can't you just watch the video? No, I don't. I do things once. No, the motion was to direct staff to work with NNI on,
Two-tiered solution.
the 2-tier solution and allowing residents up to 100% AMI to qualify for the program.
So we're not approving that resolution?
No, it's just direction to staff to
Okay.
continue work on it, and then we'll come back on the
Okay, I just wanted to
resolution.
make sure.
Yes. So with that, the resolution will be back another day. Further comments? Seeing none. Now we go to number 10, Northland's Assistant, I can't talk. Sorry. Number 10, Northland Assistance Center, Emergency Cold Weather Housing and Emergency Lodging Discussion.
Hello, Council. Mr. Mayor.
She goes right, there we go. You're ready to go.
I
Good
am.
evening.
And I actually gave you some information because there's been so much discussion about this. So I'm trying to direct you in a way that you can make a better decision, because my problem with the last cold weather MOU was the restriction. If you, and we're going to talk about a number of things, but
Okay.
you all have this piece when I get to that piece, which I will refer to. Since October 23, the city has given us, I'm going to say $3,600. It's $3,500 $540.10. So you allocated that money for us to do cold weather. And then you gave $3,000 to do emergency funding in June, and we spent about half of that money, just giving you that information for you to work with. So letting you know that NAC has spent about, in that same time, from October to now, we've spent 5,300 of our own funds. So we don't just use your money, we also will allocate money for other things. I'm hoping everybody's writing this down, so I'm getting to a point. So my proposal is that I know that there's $40,000 that's been allocated to the budget. With that fund, what I've just given you that information on, I am proposing, rather than do 1, 2, 3 MOUs, which is, cumbersome, not to me necessarily, but in general, because we have to keep doing this, that I propose that we allocate $35,000 to cold weather, and that's where I'm going to bring up this sheet. So let me talk about this sheet first. With the parameters that are indicated in level 3 activation, which indicates that if the weather is 25 degrees and below, and this is the problem I have with the last cold weather MOU, or 15 degrees wind chill, or precipitation with wind chill of 25 degrees, that we would be able to allocate that $35,000 that I'm proposing in this money under this criteria. This is a criteria that's been established by Casey Moe for cold weather, for other kinds of housing, which we don't have up in the Northland. So I'm trying to give you a parameter because it's really difficult for people who don't do what I do to understand what I do. So I pulled this up, and I'm working with Turning Point also, and I'll get to that later, that if you agree to the proposal I'm saying, of $35,000 of that for cold weather, we use level 3 in the MOU for specifications for housing at the American Inn. And then the second part of that is to take the other $5,000 and allow Northland Assistance Center to help people, like when the police department calls me in the middle of the night, or social services, or the hospital, any emergency provider, that we use that in addition to not cold weather. Do you see what I'm saying? Like $35,000 for cold weather under activation 3, $5,000 for other emergency situations that do not fit that criteria, of which I will still continue to provide the information to all of you and to Crystal and all of the folios from the American Inn, so you know that we're not just spending that money willy-nilly. I'm very strong about the fact that that last MOU was just too stringent, because I wake up in the morning and I walk my dog. I know you've heard me say this before, and it might be 30 degrees, but the wind chill is like 10 or lower, and there's still people who are going to be in trouble with that. We just made it too strict last time. I'm not happy with that, and I hope that you look at level 3, which I think is much more accommodating and doesn't make it like, we can put everybody in the whole world up. We also keep, as an agency, our restrictions are you have to have a picture ID. I know there are people in the community who are not happy that we have to do that to go in a hotel. I've explained many, many times that the hotels require that because if there's a fire and somebody dies and they don't know who they are liable for that. So we will keep those kinds of things in place. So they have to have a valid ID. It does not necessarily have to be a Missouri ID because we're talking our homeless population. I don't know. Do you have questions? I tried to make it simple this time.
There we go. So when it comes to the degrees, this would just be, we already have 25 and below, I think.
I'm looking at
Right.
level 3, which changes what
And
you
so
had
now,
in the last one.
so that would add on top. So we have 25 degrees and below, and that would add 15-degree wind chill.
15-degree
plus
wind
the
chill.
precipitation thing.
Or
Okay, yeah, I'd be fine
precipitation with the
adding those
wind
sort
chill
of things.
of 25, which I think is reasonable.
Yeah, and consolidation probably makes
I think it
sense
makes
if-
it easier for the MOU too. That's why I researched this
Yeah,
before I
yeah,
came
yeah.
here.
No, I would agree with that, adding those additional qualifiers there, and then consolidating contracts seems to make sense to me. But what else do we have on council here on comments? Councilmember Smith. Oh, was that a thumbs up or is that a? Okay, there we go.
So, thanks, Rita.
You're welcome.
Questions on, just taking a step back, America Inn.
Yes?
How did we end up sending everyone to America Inn?
Because it's the only hotel that has ever allowed people that are homeless to stay there. It took me 2 years to get us back in there. So they're able to accommodate these people. And also, there are people last year that they don't accommodate, because if you're kicked out of the American Inn, and we call them ahead of time, and they say, no, they're not welcome back here, we never let them go back there again. Or if they're there and they misbehave, they don't ever get to go back there again. The American Inn is the cheapest opportunity. And they actually raised the rates because of taxes, so now it's $74.47 a night, and it was like $69 before that. So the American Inn, no, more importantly, the American Inn is handy. So Jesse, if, people come to my agency and I can help them, and I can say you can walk down the street because they don't have cars, and I'm going to give them food and ways to take care of themselves while they're staying there, they can pack up their stuff and go down there for whatever number of nights that accommodate the MOU that I proposed in front of you.
So you sent us, which I appreciate, the list and all the data on how many people and who was sent over there. How many of those were asked not to come back or were
Very few.
sent out?
I can't give you a percentage, but I can tell you very few.
Okay.
Yeah, that have gone there and then been kicked out of there. There are people that we've called the American Inn that have not been with my agency, or they've had some other connection with the American Inn, that they were asked not to come back again. Not because that we sent them there, but because somehow, somewhere along the way. But very few. And once they're on the 86 list, they're on our 86 list.
And is that for damage to the property or?
It varies. It varies. It could be damage to the property. It could be bringing other people in who have not been,
Registered.
part of the room. It can be a number. We're talking the homeless population. It could be drugs. It could be alcohol. It could be anything. But that does not happen very often. People tend to think of the homeless population as, doing nefarious things every time they get an opportunity. But I've been here for over 18 years at my agency, and when very few people have been kicked out of the American Inn. They are kicked out. We're talking about a population that has drug and alcohol, mental health issues, those kinds of issues. I'm aware of that. But if we send them to the American Inn and they act out, they don't go back to the American Inn. And we do still check every other place before we send people during cold weather or any kind of situation, particularly with cold weather. If the weather's cold, I can call every place in town, but I'm going to tell you they're already full. So.
Yeah, I guess that was my next question is,
Yeah.
when we check before sending them, what is the net we're casting? Are we calling? all over
There's no
downtown
net
Kansas
in
City?
in the Northland.
Yeah,
We
there's nothing
call
here.
Jackson County
Yeah.
people. We call it Turning Point, we call the Salvation Army, at the places that do house people in Jackson County, we contact. But I can tell you, all the years I've done this, if we need to put somebody in a safe place or out of the weather, they're already full everywhere else.
Councilmember Fitzgerald.
I just wanted to mention, I'm generally in favor of this. The dollar allocation is consistent with what we've seen in the past years, and I think there is a demonstrated need in our community for these services. One thing I did want to understand is I haven't seen this chart before tonight, but these levels of activation with level 3, do you know what that corresponds to for Kansas City, Missouri, what they're
I don't know.
activating?
I don't know that for a fact, but I pulled this up because they do have the different levels, and I thought that level, 2 might not work with us, but I thought level 3, given our past MOU, which I had some difficulty with because it was 25 degrees when we didn't take into wind chill factor. I think you can use any of these things. But I'm asking you and trying to save time. So with the MOU, that I'm proposing level 3, because in my experience, that one is the one that works the best. 25 degrees with 15 degrees wind chill factor, or 25 degrees with precipitate like snow or sleet or whatever. This is an easier one for me to manage. And what I would also ask, not in the new MOU, is that I have to report the National Weather Service every time that I send somebody into a room, because that's just cumbersome, and it also fluctuates. I can look up the National Weather Service when I get up in the morning at 6, and then I come to work at 8, and it's fluctuated. I'm just asking we make it simpler that we take care of the people that you guys have generously taken care of. And I think level 3 works for the cold weather, and that with the $5,000 in addition to that, I'll do the same thing I've always done with the first responders and whatnot, and still report why people are coming to us, as I have done in the past to the council. As I said, I'm here with a proposal. If you guys want to do more than one MOU or you want to think about it, I'm just trying to make it easier than it has been in the past when we've started this in the last year. And I want to be responsible and be responsible to that and just not let everybody willy-nilly. So I'm trying to give you parameters that are easy for all of us to understand and for us to allocate funds in a responsible way.
Councilmember Alvarez.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. It looks like on the list that you made up for us, the event report, do you try to limit it to 2 nights? It looks like that's the most you have on
No,
here, so-
when we did, yeah, in the report you have, 2 to 3 nights. And we're talking about the $5,000 allocation, not the $35,000 allocation. Because if there's like 5 nights in a row that are 25, if you respond to level 3, then they'll be there more nights. With the one I'm working under now, the third MOU, it's 2 to 3 nights. And then if we need to put them in a hotel longer than that, our agency picks up the funds. Okay? So we will just eat that because we're under a restrict. No one said how many nights, but I'm trying to be responsible with the not cold weather funds. And it's rare that it's more than 3 nights. The only time it ever comes to 3 nights is if somebody comes to me from one of the emergency providers or the hospital. They're released on a Friday and they need to get family in there to, help them. And it might be till Monday because it's a weekend. That's about the only time we ever do that. And when we do use the 3,000 now, the 5,000 I'm proposing, we also hook them up with social services. So we, particularly Turning Point and other kinds of places. We're not a social service agency. I've had to address this before. We're not social workers, but we know how to connect people with people who are.
Councilmember Smith.
So I want to kind of pivot back onto the America Inn, and I was going to ask Chief Freeman, are we still seeing the America Inn be kind of a hub of criminal activity in the city? Is it heat map wise? Is it still quite red?
Yes.
Okay. Are we tracking any incidents and anything tied to this program? If we're sending people over and then it's becoming an issue for the hotel or for the people that we've placed having
No.
Being the victims of crimes?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Nothing specific to this program.
All right, because part of the reason for asking that is, like, I agree, we should help protect people, especially in the cold, but I, don't want to be sending them into a place that they could become the victim of a crime if it's continuously a place where crimes are committed in town. And then also, on the other side, if these people are dealing with drugs and things like that, I don't want to be sending that into the hotel to cause a problem for one of the businesses in town. And so it becomes kind of a hard thing to wrap my head around, where we're sending city funds through a nonprofit that is doing their very best to a for-profit business in town that is a hub for criminal activity. And so that's just something I hesitate on just a bit as we look at funding this and how we use the funds to house people. But I don't have a solution. I don't have a better answer.
I guess, has the hotel raised any concerns themselves?
No, they have
Okay.
not. And as I indicated before, Jesse, that if they do act out, they kick them out immediately. So I do not have any control over these kinds of things.
Sure.
We're talking the homeless population. But as Chief, Freeman said, they're not getting reports that if I send somebody there, that police have to come and haul them out. Is that what I'm hearing you say, Chief Freeman, as a general rule?
I'm just saying that we don't track that.
Yeah.
I can't say that it hasn't happened. I do believe it probably has.
I would know more than that because they would call me and say, we kicked them out of here. They call me and say they can't come back. I could track that better probably than the police department, because if we send them under the funding I'm asking for and they're kicked out, they never go back there and they're kicked out immediately. I cannot ask for many, many reasons. I can't ask specifically, is this a drug user or not a drug user? There's privacy issues that are involved in this. I will say that if they do act out, they don't come back. And it has not been my experience at all working with the American Inn for a number of years prior to this, and then got us back into them, and then after I've had this grant. They spend a lot of time with me. If somebody brings somebody else into the room, they call me and say, Rita, we've kicked them out. We pay attention to these things as best as one can with a homeless population. I understand your concerns, and I understand the reputation of the American Inn. We have no place else to send people. Nobody else will do it. It's very hard to establish. Well, look at Johnson County. They were supposed to have a La Quinta, and then they decided to do something different to redistrict it, so now it's a revitalization area. I mean, I'm sorry I'm being passionate, but, you know, we're the only ones I know who do this, and it just makes me crazy. They had a whole thing set up with Restart, which is a really good program, and then the city said, we don't want these people here, for the same reasons you're saying. And so they dismantled an entire bunch of money and whatnot. We just haven't had those problems. I'm not saying we won't, and if we do, I'll be happy to share them with the council. But I don't know what we want to do. You know.
Councilmember Clark.
I don't mean to just beat this over the head, but my thought is if they do happen to kick somebody out and you've got them set up for a 5-day stay, what happens to the money then?
Then we reduce it down. I mean,
they'll give you you're in that.
If they're in for 5 days,
that's the relationship.
Yeah, we redo
you only
the whole
pay for
folio.
what they stay.
It's a folio
Okay.
thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and that's actually not happened. Usually they're one for, if they're already in for a night, we don't get it back. You know, if they're registered in at 3 and they kick them out at midnight, too bad. But for a 5-day stay, that's never happened. Never. Because they would have found out on the first day stay. We might eat one night, but that's unusual. I'm telling you, they're not kicking them out all the time. I understand the concern about this population, but it doesn't happen like a lot of people perceive it to be.
And if I do recall some of the initial conversations, I actually felt it was probably safer for folks in this scenario versus probably being in a shelter or being in, what was it, where Bartle Hall, where there was a lot of victims of crime and things happening down the scenario versus being an individual.
Well, if you're talking about the homeless, yes, they do not want to go north. They don't want to go south of the river. But it's not a choice for them. We always call to see if there's availability. But I will say, on a different issue, in regard to safety issues, if they're in the American Inn and not being kicked out of the American Inn, and they're not on the streets in North Kansas City, finding some other way to find shelter or food, because we feed them, or other kinds of things, I would argue that that's not a bad thing. It's not always a good thing. I'm not here to argue for every single homeless person.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Todd.
Yeah, I'm glad you just said what you just said, because this is a very systemic, complex issue, and there is no simple solution. Right now, what we have is an agency and a city partnering together to try and present a solution. And with any solution you look at with this problem and this population, you're going to have pros and cons. If we had, I would love to see, at least in Northland, if not North Kansas City, homeless shelter, social service center, but we don't have that, and we don't have that nearby. And so if we do have people who are seeking shelter, everywhere else is full, and we also do not help them, they don't just disappear, they will be somewhere, and they will be in need still, and they might, we haven't quite put that new language down yet about where they're allowed to sleep on city properties. And so, they need to sleep somewhere. They need to eat somewhere. They need to take up space somewhere. And so I do think that this is at least something that's a solution that's been provided. Is it the best solution? No. But do I think probably the city would be on board for what a better solution would look like? Also no. because I was going to bring up, we just saw what happened in Johnson County. And that's very typical. And so I don't think that there is some bigger, long-term permanent solution that would likely work in our city. So I am in favor of the updated fund split and with the activation of 3. And I also, if there's somebody out there listening who has ideas about how we could, and it will be a slow process, but we can kind of build and think about what other solutions are there, or come up with things that maybe haven't been done before, and we can kind of move in that direction. I think having this data and having worked with this organization, we'll at least have data to know kind of how many people we're talking about, what kinds of issues we're seeing, and even in the partnership with American Inn and some of our partner businesses around there, what kinds of crime are we seeing? Is it connected to this population or not? And actually collect that data, because data speaks better than feelings sometimes. So that's it.
And Councilmember Todd, I appreciate what you said, and you're right, data does speak. So we don't have any way to, at least that I'm aware of, if people are apprehended or cited for whatever reason and they end up being homeless when our providers come in contact with them. I don't know that that's happening. If it is, it's fine. If not, but you're right. Data needs to be done, and nobody's doing it because nobody cares about these people. And I'm just telling you, I've been doing this for a long time, and Johnson County is a perfect example. Everything was in place. Everybody was a go until the council decided to rezone that as a revisable community. I don't know what they did. They rezoned it so it couldn't happen. And Restart is a really good program, and they just blew them out by doing that.
I'll just say, I appreciate the work you've been doing. I remember our initial conversations, and it is just real simple stuff. We're making sure no one dies on the streets here in the
That's
extreme
how I
cold
started
weather.
this whole thing.
That's how it started. We had a lot of conversations
We did.
to prop this up, and I think that this has been a good place to make sure that doesn't happen here. So I'd support consolidating this, inserting temperature level 3. The third one, it might be one we probably need to discuss with council, is how do you track the weather? How do you track, how do we insert in that concrete? Because at some point, there has to be probably some sort of guardrails on city dollars. to
I
make sure.
suppose.
It's trying to figure out a way to make it easy,
Well,
though.
tell
How do
me
we
what-
make it easier?
Well, tell me what
Yeah.
time you want me to do it, because trust
Yeah.
me, when I tried to do it under the last MOU for cold
Yeah.
weather, I would look at it at 6, and at 7 it would be different, and at 8 it would be different. We all live in Missouri, and we all live
Yeah, yeah,
here. Anybody who watches
No, so-
TV knows that if you contact, I think it was whatever the weather service was, because I was really trying to work under that very restrictive thing, it was a nightmare. Because when do I say what time it was? And I don't know how you guys do that. And I think what I'm going to say to you, Mayor,
Yes.
is you're going to have to trust the agency. Or say at 6 o'clock in the morning, this is it. Or whatever, because you just, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't,
What-
maybe.
what I would say is-
Maybe
is-
Councilmember Fitzgerald.
Yeah,
has an idea.
I will take a couple more comments, but I would say generally, I think we're gonna have a couple more weeks for staff to kind of.
Oh, yeah, you
wrap
don't
up.
have to
Come
do
up
it
with something
right
as
now.
well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we're getting that, but if we could think through different, and maybe someone has something here.
Yeah,
Councilmember
it
Fitzgerald.
I mean, it shows on here that
yeah.
at 8 a.m.
Yeah, 8 a.m.
8 a.m. Yeah.
I think that's
Okay.
where everybody was
Then
going.
So
there we
just
go.
put 8 a.m. in
Okay.
there. Then I have a parameter to work with, because it was not worked before.
All right. That's what you were gonna say. Okay. Boom, boom, boom. Councilmember Smith, go ahead.
I don't know. You might bring that
I
up.
just.
Yeah. So I want to go back to.
Okay, wait a minute.
Yep.
Excuse me.
Yep.
I'm just saying, Mike pointed out at the bottom of this that determined by 8 a.m. daily based on forecast weather for that night, 6
Yeah.
p.m. to 6 a.m.
Yeah.
So if we can use that, it gives me parameters. They already did
There you
it
go,
for
that's-
me in KCMO, which I
There you
should
go.
do.
Maybe we've resolved that one then. Hopefully. There you go. All right. Further, Councilmember Smith.
So I want to go back to Tabitha's comment really quick. It sounds like what you were kind of driving toward is requesting that maybe people propose solutions, which we have a formal process to request proposals. I'm curious if we've looked into doing any sort of requesting or request for proposals for this sort of service to see what is out there. like what sort of programs exist or don't exist yet, but it could be proposed. While, you know, we're getting close to cold weather, we should probably go ahead and get this for this year. But I would like to see what exists. And we haven't done that. I don't know if we request proposals for just about everything else. Is there a requirement for something like, I know we haven't in the past, but.
Councilmember Smith, I got to tell you that I've been doing this for a long time. I've sat on many, many committees of all the organizations who what I do, and none of them have found resources in the Northland who want to house or to have a place like they can put people for homelessness. Nobody. I've been doing it for 18 years, and I would be delighted to have somebody actually come up with something. I am the only full-time employee at my agency with a part-time person. I do not have the opportunity to do this. And I can assure you, I'm just going to say I can assure you, you put that out, it's going to be just like Johnson County, not in my backyard. I don't know how to fix that. It's my desire to do so. I can only do what I can do because the city has been really generous with this program. We're the only ones that exist. I can say that completely now that Johnson County threw one out. I could say, oh yeah, there's a place in Johnson County that Restart works. I would be delighted to work with people on that. I don't have the time or energy to make that happen, and I've tried really hard to work with every partner in the Northland over the years.
Tom, did you want to answer that question from Councilman Smith there?
Yes, that was a fact that I certainly didn't know. We do have a policy, I know, but it sounds like this may be a sole source. And if that is the case, then there's no purpose to bid.
It could be, but we don't know until we do. Right?
No,
we don't know until we ask.
I have no reason to doubt Rita.
And I don't doubt Rita either, but somebody may not have come up with a thing because it hasn't been asked for from a city. You know, I'm just hoping that there is a better solution out there than shipping people to a hotel that they may or may not encounter criminal activity at. But for now, that's our best solution.
Yes.
And I think that moving forward, we direct staff.
And if
to
we
bring
find
back
out
the
there's
thing.
criminal activity, I will make sure that I report that to you.
Sure.
Because that's easily done. Because if they kick somebody out of the hotel and I say, did you call the police? Then I will know.
Yep.
I'm telling you, that's not the case. I understand your concerns. I do. It's like that not in my backyard thing, and this is the only solution we have here now, and the only solution in the greater metro that I'm aware of. And we don't serve the greater metro, we serve Clay and Platte County.
All right, so we good with moving forward with having staff consolidate this, working with Rita to consolidate the 3 contracts, insert the temperature level 3, and work on inserting the 8 a.m. daily checking of the forecasted weather as well.
Yes.
Did you get all that this time? So when I asked for this motion for that very convoluted thing, we'll make sure we're all good here. Councilmember Smith.
Would it be worth to the council to seek and see if there are other solutions out there that could help with this?
Are you particularly talking cold weather sheltering or social services? Like,
I get it. Like RFPs are tough because you need to kind of create a lane for them to bid into.
I'm going to tell you again.
Hold on. Rita, hold on. I believe you. I promise.
I don't know what, I'm just saying I'm frustrated because I don't know what you're talking about, and I've done this for 18 years and tried to find solutions to this for 18 years. There's nobody who's put an RFP in to have a homeless shelter or to have social services there, and I don't know if North Kansas City is a big enough city to find a place to start housing people up here. I'm sorry, I'm just frustrated because you keep saying the same thing and I keep telling you the same thing. You can do your own research and know that I know you don't doubt me, but I've worked really hard to find places for people. It took me 2 years to get them into the American Inn. So I'm not trying to be argumentative. I just feel like I keep saying the same thing when I've already, unless you can prove that there's somebody else who wants to do an RFP and put homeless people up. And I've worked with every agency, Salvation Army, Metropolitan Lutheran, in many, many committees. No one has come up with a solution. We've done the best thing in the entire metro area.
Rita, I can't prove a negative. I can't prove that
Well,
it doesn't
I'm
exist.
asking you to research it, and then you can question me on it.
Until we ask, we don't know what exists
Well, I'm
out
telling
there.
you,
Okay.
ask, and then we'll have this conversation again.
All right, Councilmember Todd.
I was just going to say, I think Councilmember Smith is like a no stone left unturned.
I know that.
And I think in a very complex, again, systemic problem area, sometimes you have to leave no stone left unturned.
Absolutely.
And there may not be an existing agency or
And
out
I
there that's
challenge him
willing
to
to
find
do that.
No stern.
But there may be some company out there who's willing to think of a solution that maybe doesn't exist, or maybe that no one's doing now. And so I do think it's not for nothing.
Oh, I
think
agree
it's
with that.
just
I'm just saying,
making
find
sure-
that people,
Yeah.
and I will work with those people.
yeah. And
But I don't
so
know who those people are, and if you can find
Yeah,
them,
and
I will work with them.
I just think
I
we
think
would
we
need
need
to
oh, sorry.
identify what exactly it is we would.
Yeah, I think that'd be a
be
whole nother
looking
discussion to come up,
for, but
particulars to
for
look at
this-
other services.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think there's a lot of moving parts on that one, so I think that'd be a great standalone conversation to have as well. Councilmember Safer.
Yeah, right now we've got something in front of us
Right.
to proceed with, and anything else we do,
Is your microphone on? Maybe I just can't hear you.
and anything else that
There we
we
go.
do can be done in parallel or following.
Yeah,
But right now we have this to deal with, and let's proceed with it because there is a vast need. Well, there's a need. We don't know how vast it is, but there's a need that's clearly clear to everyone who looks. And let's just move with this and not pettifog the whole thing.
there we go. Just someone wanted, I can't tell if that's a comment, question. You ready to make a motion? Or are you just stretching out? I wasn't, okay. Councilmember Alvarez.
Yes, I just want to comment that I think for our city size, we're only 4.5 square miles. There are shelters, maybe just a mile outside of our city. It happens to be in Kansas City, Missouri, but they're not that far away. But I'm sure you've probably found that they're
And they're
usually
full.
full, or they have restrictions that some of the people, they don't want to follow. But unfortunately, if they don't, then I remember we had an incident here, I think it was about this time last year, when someone was released from custody and they wanted to find a place to stay for the night. So they went and broke out the window of one of our councilmen's vehicle. I would have much rather they were put up in a hotel for the night rather than causing somebody that grief. So I think we have this in front of us, and maybe in the future, if we want to see if we can have other options, but I know that there are other shelters. Everybody keeps saying north of the river or in our city, but our city is small. So, but there are other shelters that are very close, within like a mile or two from here, and
But they're full.
they're full, yeah. So I recommend we go ahead and go with this and maybe look for the future for something else, or in addition.
That was a motion by Linda Alvarez, Amy Clark is saying, but I will, she said, yes, it is. There we go. Is there a second to that?
Second.
All right, and this motion is to have staff draft a contract, one MOU encompassing all this stuff. I've already said it, but I'll say it again. Consolidating the temperature level 3, the 8 AM checking, and is there anything else that you had on your end? And if not, then we will, you two or three, I guess, all consolidate together, and we'll do this again another week. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries. We'll see you again shortly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are we done? Oh my God, I'm lost on my agenda. 11, approving accounts due and payable by the city through September 27, 2024. Bill number 7876, ordinance number 9673.
First reading.
All in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposed, say no. Motion carries.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through September 27th, 2024.
I move that bill number 7876 be placed on second and final reading and pass as ordinance number 9673.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Saper,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yep.
Councilmember Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Councilmember Alvarez,
Yes?
Councilmember Clark, Councilmember Todd.
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through September 27th, 2024.
All right, number 12, staff comments. What do we got?
The only thing we have tonight, too, Anthony and Kim. So unless anyone has any questions, we'll.
Yeah, just real quick. I'll go. Yeah, that works. Just real quick, I wanted to call attention to that Spire will be moving into the next phase of their big reconstruction project in the city. This is going to be between Swift and Howell. They're going to be closing lanes and blocking off parking on 28th Avenue and 29th Avenue going forward. So they're going to do one street at a time, but then they're going to progress up to the end of the city, up to 32nd Street, and then move into the avenues and keep on going. But this is the next phase you're moving into right now.
So how are we assisting them in communicating that out, or are we just leaving that up to them to do? What's the?
We leave that up to them. So they've actually been going door to door, communicating where they'll be closing parking, what street closures. And then these two closures will have flaggers at both ends of the closure directing traffic on where to go.
Okay, I know they've been a lot of other places, so have we had any real issues so far with notifications or communication?
They've been doing a real good job getting that notification out.
Okay, perfect. Go ahead.
Random question. I see a lot of spray paint on the sidewalk, the marking of the utilities. That comes off, right?
It does, yeah.
Okay.
That's the construction paint that usually comes off. It's for marking utilities.
It's
so
been
that they don't
very
run into
resilient through all the rain we've had.
Sure.
and-
It takes a little while, but it doesn't.
Comes off.
These are brand new sidewalks that are just getting marked. Okay, thank you.
Well, that's how they know to mark them. The second you lay down new sidewalk, they come out and mark them.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
It is state law, just so that making sure they don't hit something underground.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, please.
So just wanted to kind of mention the fact that the next round of Citizens Academy starts this week. Classes start on Thursday. They will be meeting weekly, and they will graduate at the last city council meeting in December. I don't think we'll have Christmas presents, but we will have cookie and punch.
There we go. No more? All right. Councilmember Saper, lead us off here.
This is very important that we've discussed how to house people who need housing. This is one of the issues that the Equity and Inclusion Committee has been dealing with. And one of the problems are the police, no matter how well-intentioned they are to find some place for someone, can't. So they have to go to agencies that are out there. And this is not just a cold weather event. The amount that we've allocated for overnight housing or more for those who have no place to go may or may not be sufficient. We may have to increase that. But this is something we need to deal with, and it's not going away. These people aren't going away, and the issues aren't going away. And we do have to deal with people camping on the streets, but they need someplace else to go. Sometimes they're not willing to go other places. It's not a simple problem, and there are no simple solutions. All we can do is sort of mutter along and do the best we can with the issues that we're confronted with, not ask for perfection. And that's what I think we sort of came to tonight. I hope we continue to do that. And to those who are celebrating Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, Lashana Tova to you, and good fast. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith.
The North Kansas City newsletter quarterly went out, landed in my mailbox a day or two ago, and there's a lot of good stuff in there, so anybody watching this, please go read that cover to cover. The mayor wrote a nice little letter to us all on the front. A couple things I want to point out in there that are relevant to the fall. It's election season, signs are going up, flags are going up, people are getting very excited about all of that. But you get 3 signs, including your flags, so don't go too wild. Leaves are falling, temperatures are falling, and we have the Public Works leaf vacuum that will come around and suck them up off the curb coming up. When does that start happening?
Probably going to be starting mid this month. They kind of gauge it on weather, but it's looking like it's starting to get colder at night, so it'll probably start happening mid-October.
Very good. And when you do that, please rake them to the curb, not past the curb. That is how we start floods in North Kansas City. The Be Smart program, I've had numerous conversations and public engagement events with them, and one thing that I really took away is if you have kids and you're sending your kids to play at other folks' houses, ask them how they're storing their guns if they are present in the house. It's an awkward conversation, but it could really save a life of your child or their child in the home. Tomorrow is large item pickup for those who celebrate. And tomorrow is also, correct me if I'm wrong, is Coffee with a Cop at Starbucks, 9 o'clock to 11. Go grab your lattes and pumpkin spices and all that. Thank you.
Will you be doing the drive-through window again? Oh, there we go. A little extra
See,
incentive for
Chief,
folks.
Chief Freeman in a Starbucks apron.
There we go. Councilmember Fitzgerald.
I'm glad to hear the Citizens Academy is starting back up, but I think at least 3 current council people have gone through that, if not more. It's a good program worth checking out. And also, just as a reminder, the deadline to register in the November election is a week from tomorrow. It doesn't take very long to register or to check that you're registered at your current address. And go Royals.
Very good. Councilmember Alvarez.
I just have one comment, I think, more or less a question maybe for Anthony. As far as our trash services, when does that transition take place, or do you have?
That will still be a while.
Okay.
Our contract with Jim's Disposal is going to continue on through probably December. I'd say.
It carries, what, 90 days with the transition? It carries 90 days. We've been talking with GFL, we're targeting December 1st right now. But we've got to get things, I think they're already planning on it and doing what they can ahead of time.
Okay.
But we plan to get a contract back to all of you on the 15th.
Okay. I just had a few
Yeah.
neighbors, residents ask me, and I'm like, I'm not real sure. So.
There'll be a lot of notification, and
Okay.
then the transition will be mapped out. We'll figure out how that's going to go with GFL and Jim's. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
No, please go ahead.
Yep. It's mostly been said. Thanks to Rita for serving the vulnerable community members, and thank you, Kim, for printing off those postcards. I got those delivered for the Seminole residents for the event on October 19th. So those have been sent out, and I have spoken with one individual that's going to be, I think her name's Lindsay, that's joining the Citizens Academy. She's pretty pumped about it. I think she's in Ward 2. I needed her to be in Ward 4. But yes, very excited, and yeah, that's it for me.
Thank you, Councilmember Todd.
Be safe, have fun, and make good choices.
There we go. And being last is always easy, so we can just do a Go Royals and call it from there. Executive, well, let me ask this. Are we still doing both, Mike? I said I would determine. We don't need the second one, or what do you want to do? You know what, we'll just we don't need contractual. So I'm going to skip number 15, unless someone really wants to do it. And I will go straight to number 16, which is consideration request to hold and recess in an executive session as requested by the city councilor to be held on this date on a litigation matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statute 610-0211.
So moved.
Call the roll, please.
I have 2 movers.
Oh, I thought that was you. Oh, what did you?
Take
I
it whichever
just
direction.
guessed.
It's fine.
I just guessed.
Councilmember Saper,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Sure.
Councilmember Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Councilmember Alvarez,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Todd.
Yes.
All right, with that, the live stream will be cutting off. There'll be no further public votes or business this evening. Thank you.